Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. And in today's video, we're going to answer one of the biggest questions that all real estate wholesalers and investors have. And the question is skip tracing result is directly correlated to the cost of that skip tracing? In other words, will you get better leads if you spend more money on skip tracing? And we're going to answer that question by doing a very comprehensive test that I don't believe anyone on YouTube has done. I've searched the internet for 4 best skip tracing platforms. Everyone who has reviewed them have liked them. Some of them are less known, some of them are more known, right? So I've done a lot of research. I compiled out of 4 different skip tracing platforms, each one of them for a specific tier of pricing. Number 1, for the cheapest one, we have Verisum. Verisum is actually one of those platforms where other skip tracing platforms actually buy from there and then resell it to you at a more expensive value. Because Verisum is not so popular with real estate investors and things like that, and you actually have to have a subscription. You have to pay like a $3,600 a year subscription. But after you do that, each lead actually costs you only 1.7 cents. Incredibly cheap, right? So if you're running like 20,000 leads a month or something like that, this volume discount is incredibly useful for you. You're going to end up paying like $400 to $500 a month for 20,000 leads if you include the $3,600 fee. There's more expensive plans, right? So people that do high volume love Verisum for that exact reason. But most of us don't do 20 to 50,000 leads a month, right? But is it worth it? We're going to look into that. The second tier in pricing is kind skip tracing. Kind can cost you as low as 3 cents or as high as 6 cents. And here's the truth. The 3 cents leads are not worth it. I'm not even considering the 3-cent lead in this video because I don't think they will do a justification to the service. I think that 6-cent leads are actually pretty solid. I've used that experiment and I've tried it out. And I think the 6 cents is where you get the best results for your money. So we're going to compare that. Number 3, and then we're jumping, is actually SkipMatrix. I've actually done 2 videos before when I did skip tracing comparison back in like 2021 or 2022 and another one in 2023. They were super comprehensive and we broke it down and we really looked into all the kinds of different skip tracing platforms. So if you haven't seen those videos, I suggest checking them out. But in this video, we're going to put it to a different test, right? This time we're comparing quality and price at the same time. So SkipMatrix ends up being 15 cents, even though if you use the code ROUGH, you actually make it 14 cents. And then after that, you have volume discounts. But overall, let's say it's 15 cents. Let's say you don't use the code ROUGH and you actually use the original price. So it's 50 cents per lead. We're going to look at the depth of the data you get with them. And obviously, we're going to compare it to the other ones as well and see the results as well. And number 4 is the most expensive one out there, is IDI skip tracing. So IDI is one of those platforms that doesn't really target real estate wholesalers, investors too much either. But if you do enough research, you will find their name thrown out there and their quality is solid, right? But the problem is that if you're skip tracing anything under 1,000 leads, you're actually paying 25 cents per lead. Anything over 5,000, I think, or over 1,000, I think you can pay 18 cents, etc., etc. So like if you get to like 10,000 leads, you can actually get a discount quite solidly. You can discount it to like down to 13 to 14 cents. So it kind of brings it down to SkipMatrix prices. But overall, it is the most expensive one because not always you want to skip trace over 1,000 leads, right? Sometimes you have a small list, like a very targeted list, and you want to skip trace it. It's going to cost you a lot of money. So that one I'm putting as number 1, the most expensive on the tier list. Now that you know which companies we're comparing and the pricing that they come with, the next thing we're going to do is look at the depth of the data that they provide when you skip trace with them. And the final step, the one that is going to be the most important out of all of them, is that we're going to text all of these leads and we're going to see how many qualified sellers, how many round numbers, and how many leads we can get from this list. Each company got about 500 leads per list. So I pulled a single family home and a land list. I also adjusted it not just based on volume, because some of them ended up a little less, a little more. I also adjusted it by percentage to make it extremely fair. So you guys going to see it on the final spreadsheet. But before we do that, let's hop into the depth of the data that you actually do get with the skip tracing platforms. All right, guys, so we're going to go through this list like I promised. And I actually have a really cool statistic that I want to show you afterwards. Okay, so IDI lands. All right, so this is IDI land. So again, they provide phone numbers and emails, right? Because that's actually what you request. That's what I requested. You can request more information. You can even request relative information. I do think that if you request more than 2 information, you do have to pay extra, right? So that kind of ends up being, doesn't make sense for you to do. Depends, right? Depending on what list you're doing. If you're doing super targeted list, you really need to know the relatives. maybe it's like a state or whatever it is. But yes, you get up to, if I'm not mistaken, so you got 5 phone numbers, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, so you get up to 5 phone numbers, and then you get emails, also up to 5 emails. I don't know the quality of the emails. That's a little bit, always hard. I feel like emails are not always great. But, that's IDI land, IDI single family, same thing. When it comes to Versium, so what Versium provides you is obviously all the information. That actually provides you the lot size, etc. So they're keeping the information you give them in that list, which I like. But you get phone numbers. Let's talk about this. So with Versium, like, I requested only phone numbers. I did not request emails because they said that the emails is a separate cost for them as well, so you only get phone numbers. How many? You can get up to 6, because this one doesn't count as original. So you got 1 and alternate line phone number 5. So you get up to 6 numbers. Again, there's no other information. The rest of this information actually came from Proption. So you get very, very basic info. You just get phone numbers and that's it. Versus single family, same thing. Land, kind. So kind actually provides phone numbers up to 7, emails. They provide relative information. They provide a lot of relative information. So they try to provide tons of info. Is it correct? That's a different conversation. But it looks like they do provide a lot of information about relatives as well. Single family, same thing. And then we got SkipMatrix. So let's just open this up because they have a lot more data. So they got information about bankruptcy. They got information about, we got obviously the subject information, the email. So how many phone numbers they provide? They provide you 5 phone numbers, 5 emails. They provide you IP addresses if you really want to. So you get IP addresses, you get their age, you get the relative age, get their relatives, obviously phone numbers, etc. Emails, got relatives, you actually get a relative type. You don't just get a relative, you get a relative type. Let's see if Kind did that. Or did they just tell you relative? Yeah, they didn't tell you what relative type. That could be very, very helpful. Relative type, you got a, last seen, all that stuff, relative phone numbers. Then you got associates, right? So this could be also very, very helpful. You got tons of information, tons and tons and tons. So a lot of associates as well. Still scrolling, still more info. Associates age, emails, phone numbers. Okay. So let's be honest. I mean, the SkipMatrix does provide a lot more info than anyone else. Kind of comes close. I'm not gonna lie, right? But it also doesn't seem like they provide a lot of information. So I mean, yeah, they say relative, but they only have like this much. If you looked at how much relative info this provides, is a lot more deeper info. They're like skip tracing these leads for you as well. So that could be very, very helpful if you are doing a list that, a state list, LLC list, absentee owner list, probate list, all that stuff. I mean, it could be useful with any list that you're actually targeting, that you are willing to go above and beyond and not only message the original lead, but if they don't respond, message the subject or call a relative lead or whatever it is. So in my opinion, super, super helpful. So when it comes to depth of the information, SkipMatrix definitely is number 1, Kind has second, and everyone else is kind of on the same spot. Again, I think that if you wanted to, you can get more info. But one thing I do want to say about Verisum actually allows you to get a lot more information just than this. This is just a trial, right? If you were using Verisum and you wanted to get more info, you can actually get their credit score, political affiliation, religious affiliation, household income, this and that. There's so much, because Verisum is not really targeted towards real estate investors. I mean, they don't market towards real estate investors. They actually get like political campaigns and big companies that use Verisum. So therefore, you can get a lot more information. Some of that information you can't do anything with, but some of that information you can be, targeting with your skip tracing and with your texting, cold calling campaign. So I think that we do need to note that Verisum has a lot more to offer. Before we jump into the spreadsheet, let's go ahead and take a look at how do I get this data, right? I'm not making up this data, right? So when you actually go to Smarter Contact, right, and this is what we use for texting, just in general, not even just this list, you can actually see if you go a little bit further back, because we just finished it a little bit some time ago. So you can see what leads we texted, how many, everything like that, the replies, etc. Right? So again, I'm not making up these numbers. These numbers are actually from the system based on what my assistants, when they talk to sellers, the results, and etc. So I made sure to keep all the data here for you guys to show, but instead of showing you here in Smarter Contact, I'm actually put it onto a spreadsheet, which will make things a lot easier and more clear. All right, guys, so here are the results. So we're going to go through them all together really quick, and I'm going to show you guys what I found and what patterns have I seen. We're going to start with the most cheapest one. It's the Verisum. Verisum land, we got 449 total people that I told them to skip trace. They only got back to me 400, which is 89% hit rate. Not bad, but it's a little bit under average of what I would consider as standard for real estate. Total numbers, what I mean by this is that total numbers were uploaded. So on average, each person should have about 2.25 numbers. So 2.25. Obviously, nobody has 2.25, but anywhere between 2 and 3 numbers, everyone should have. So that's good. You want to know how many numbers you're potentially getting per person. Then you got uploaded mobile numbers. So these are actually the numbers that did get uploaded. So we ended up getting 62 responses for Verisum, which ends up being a 13.8% response rate out of all the phone numbers that we texted. Out of that, we ended up having 16 wrong numbers, 35%. 3 of them said, "Didn't call me." I just wanted to mark these. These are not super, super important, but just so you can have it and see it. 11 people sold too much and are interested. And then maybe they wanted to have a price, whatever it is. And then 0 of them actually turned into a potential lead. And lead, I didn't go too hard on it. So it's not like it was like super qualified. Don't think about this. These are not realistic numbers for like a super qualified lead. I think that, it takes a lot more than that, right? So I want to say it's like 10% of the leads, then those turn into very qualified. Personally, that's how my numbers look. So these are like people that are willing to answer questions, give you a number, etc., something like that along those lines. Even if they say, "I don't really need to sell, but this is my number," I consider that a lead in this particular test. So a version of single family, same thing, right? We see percentage, much higher hit rate. So maybe land was not really their thing. But again, if you actually look at single families, it had the slightly lowest rate, but it's like about the same as everyone else. Had a higher number per person than land, and answered not as much. Roll numbers a little slightly higher than land, and we did get 2 leads. So this percentage shows that 0.37% of all the leads of total hit people, so of total people we texted, actually turn into a lead, right? So this is actually good for you to know, is that how many people you can text and how many of them will convert into a lead based on your quality of your messages, etc. And obviously SkipTracing, that's included in that. So Verisum, to be honest, you're gonna see it here in a second, and maybe you're already looking at the screen, but it is the worst results out of all of them. There's really no doubt on that. Let's go next one. Kind single family, we got 408 people that actually got hit from 427. Total numbers 3.2, solid amount of numbers per person. Uploaded 750 mobile, answered 12.6 and 6%. Very standard. Then you have the 41.3% of the roll numbers, ADNCs, 31 too much, not interested. A lot of people said too much for not interested, but it's not really here or there in this test. I just wanted to have that for myself also. And then 2 of them turned into a lead, so 0.49. I mean, this was single family homes, right? And this is also single family homes. So if you compare apples to apples, it's better. It's definitely better. Kind land, same thing, huge hit list. By the way, guys, I probably forgot to mention this, but these lists were the same area, same exact list and everything. So they're not different lists. They're the same exact list on each one SkipTracing platform. So I wanted to make it as fair as possible, because this is something that I want to share with you guys, and this is something I want to know myself. So 3.3 numbers per person, all that good stuff, 13.3 response rate, 34% roll numbers, and 57% conversion rate. So these roll numbers, so just wanted to mention this, these roll numbers, right? You can see some of them are like higher, some of them are lower. Here's the thing. If a SkipTracing service provides you more numbers, then there's a high likelihood you're going to have more roll numbers responses. So let's say one person has like 5 numbers on the file, then 4 of them are probably going to be wrong. So therefore, this is not always a good determination if the texting results and if the skip tracing results are like, it's not clear indicator personally, not always. So therefore, it's good to have to see it here, but it's not like how I would determine if it's a good skip tracing platform or not, unless it's like 90% or 80%, whatever, just out of nowhere. So that's, we're showing land, kind land, 100% an improvement from Verisum. I mean, this is 6 cents per lead, and this is 1.7 cents. And then, well, if you include the yearly cost, depending on how much you do it, it could be 3 to 4 cents. So, I mean, you are upgrading a lot going from here to here. I mean, the results are absolutely awesome. The next one up on the pricing, here we jump about double on the price, maybe a little more, just depends on how much you skip trace, is SkipMatrix, right? So let's talk about it. So hit rate, 95% for houses, 97% for land, really solid, right on the same stage as Kind. Kind even had crazier land, but let's go further. Total numbers, 3 numbers per person, 2.9 numbers per person. Kind had a lot higher, not a lot, but Kind had a little bit higher of a rate, but 3.29 is better than 2.25 and 2.9. You got answered 11.8%, a little lower, but also this is for single family homes. If you tend to see a lower response rate overall, any of this you look. Row numbers, since you got a lot of numbers, there was a lot of row numbers. Again, kind of seem to be online with everything else. But here's where it becomes really interesting. We got 5 leads. And this is the biggest, out of these are all like cool to see, KPIs, great and everything. But this right here is probably the most important thing in the entire spreadsheet. Because none of this matters is that if your conversion rate is higher, because look at this, it's almost double, right? And yeah, okay, you're playing double for skip tracing, but then you're getting double amount of leads. I mean, personally, it makes a lot of sense, especially if you consider the depth of the data that SkipMatrix provides. Kind tries to do it. I mean, I'll give a Kind a fair shout out, but I do think that no one does it like SkipMatrix does. I don't know what to do it in the background. I think they take pride in their system and how they do it and where they pull data and they scrub it. And I don't know. Well, whatever they do it right. Look especially at land. You got all of these, and then you got almost 1%. That again, that's almost double. Here's the thing. The way I look at it is that, especially if you're pulling like a very targeted list, let's just say you're pulling a list that's like liens from the county. You specifically pull 1,000 properties from the county. You don't want to spend another time pulling another 1,000 and doing this all over again, because you want to get the best result from the list that you have now. Therefore, paying 14, 15 cents for SkipMatrix might make so much sense, because you're going to get double the leads compared to Kind, which only costs you 6 cents. If you're running a huge list and it really doesn't matter, what I mean, you're like just kind of like high equity list and whatever is like 40,000 properties. Maybe SkipMatrix is not the best option for that, but I know most people are not doing that, right? So we are looking at very targeted lists. You're finding that extreme motivations. Therefore, it just ends up being that SkipMatrix makes more sense, right? So we got all of this. Let's look at the last one, right? Because now we're at the pricing that is like getting kind of expensive. I mean, it's already expensive, now getting really expensive. Doesn't make sense to upgrade to even more expensive of skip tracing. Let's look at IDI. So you got very high hit rates, very solid. Numbers, solid for single family. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, it's the highest one for single family. Not that great for land. It's okay. Not the greatest one out there. I think it's probably just a little better than Verisum land, but consider the fact that it costs so much more, they should do better. Answered, this is probably was the lowest answer response rate compared to all of them. And if you actually look at it, same thing goes for land. If I'm not mistaken, it's actually slightly lower than all of the other ones for land. So IDI had the lowest response rate. And if you look at the conversion rate, we got 3 and 3. So this is a very in line with Kind. I mean, yes, it's slightly better than Kind, but I'm sorry, but if I'm paying 6 cents or 25 cents, I want to use the 6 cents if I'm going to get almost the same results. There is not enough value to upgrade to here. Here's what the kicker with IDI. If you have ever heard of like single skip trace platforms, For example, there's been verified out there, white pages, etc. Well, you type in a certain person, you get all the information about them. IDI has that too. It is quite impressive how much data they provide. And their phone numbers overall are like better than like been verified, etc. So I think IDI might be worth for single search. So IDI might be worth, it's cost like $1.20 to do a single search. So it's not cheap. But you like, let's say you're doing a probate lead that you like really want to get that lead, right? Then you just, you make sure to, then you use their platform. They have an online platform that you sign up. Obviously, you have to go through the whole sign up process. It's not that straightforward like SkipMatrix or Kind or whatever. So, and you go ahead and go through this full process. And if you do, you actually go through the full process. So if you do, you can use their platform and it's worth it. In my opinion, that's worth it. But when it comes to bulk, it's just not. It's just not worth it. And I was going into this video with the idea that I really, really was hoping to get results and to really see the difference. Because when I was researching different skip tracing platforms for some time, there's so many people confused out there, lost, and like, should I spend more? And some people that are just like, don't, you get what you pay for, etc., etc. So therefore, spend a lot more. And I'll tell you this. Overall, I will say you get what you pay for, but be careful. Not every cheap and not very expensive platform is made the same. Therefore, I made this test to show you guys. And it's 3 years in a row that I make different skip tracing videos. And 3 years in a row, SkipMatrix ended up being #1. And I don't know how much more testing I can put them through to really see what they're doing. Maybe one day they'll fall off. I have no idea. But, I'm not married to the company. But the idea that till this day, for 3 straight years, they've come up on top on every test I've done shows and proves a lot to me personally. So if you're willing to invest in your business and willing to invest in yourself, I suggest using SkipMatrix. And if you use the code Ralph, you actually get 1 cent off all of your traces. That code never expires, so you can keep using it and reusing it and doing all of that. That was my honest test. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. As always, I'm happy to put out this kind of content. It is very educational, and I hope you guys find value in it. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.